Hey there, Jordan Sheridan, live Monday, April 30th. Very, 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 very busy day. Very, very busy day. I just finished my stretches for my back. I had back surgery recently, so I've been slacking just a little bit on my stretches that I have to do every day. But I just finished. I just had my lunch, a wonderful smorgasbord of empanadas, and if you notice, if you notice, there's a new sign in town, right behind me, and that would be patreon.com/ Jordan Sheridan Reports, patreon.com/ patreon.com/ Jordan Sheridan Reports. This is, I believe this is my fourth arts and crafts sign that I've used in my live streams. Because, I'm not at the Young Turks anymore, so we're starting from the ground up. And when I say the ground up, I'm talking the ground up. So we do little arts and crafts projects here in my apartment, and a good friend of mine made that sign yesterday. Let me know in the comments if you like the sign, if you'd like it in a different color, or something like that. Press the share button so we can get this out to more people. Unfortunately, YouTube doesn't always notify people right away or at all that people that they subscribe to are live. So unfortunately, sometimes people just stumble upon the fact that you're live without knowing it. So I'll wait a couple minutes till we got some more people here in the audience. There is a lot going on. Alex said, LOL, you answered my question just as I entered it. You and Jimmy were my faves at TYT. Yeah, no, I haven't been at TYT since November of last year. If you've been living under a rock, they chose to let me go. So I am on my own now. I am in the process of very, very, very active and busy efforts to launch my own media network that will consist of myself, a cameraman on the road, and other reporters. And this fine individual, Jen Elizabeth, is my business partner. She's in the chat right now. She holds down the live stream chat. She puts all the links in there. She brings the good cheer. She tells me when I'm being ridiculous. So that's Jen, my business partner. And we are actively working to launch this bad boy. Status coup. Because we need a journalistic coup d'etat of the status quo in this country. I'm not talking about violence. Leave your bows and arrows at home. But I'm talking about a real news organization that has real journalists, not these cocktail crowd elitist idiots that we saw at the White House Correspondents' Dinner over the weekend, which I'm going to get to. But real journalists that are aggressive, that will roll up their sleeves, that are willing to do the work, going to Flint, Standing Rock, East Chicago, and many other places. And I should also, very excited to announce that tomorrow I will be recording an interview with the new chairman of the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe. His name is Mike Faith. So I look forward to interviewing him and then turning that interview around as soon as possible for all you great YouTube subscribers. If you're not subscribed to my Patreon, that's the address right behind me. You can get my podcasts at my Patreon. You could get my diaries. I do diaries multiple times a week where I give you behind the scenes what's going on. We're also going to be doing monthly video chats with my patrons. So a lot going on. And I'll talk about some other things that are going on, because not only do I have this bad boy, this reporting Patreon, I just released chapter 8 of my book. If you don't know, I've been writing a book. It's called Corporate Con Job: How the Mainstream Media Aids the Oligarchy. And just yesterday, folks, I released chapter 8 of Corporate Con Job. There it is, chapter 8, Election Night and the Demise of Neoliberalism. Chapter 8 is all about my harrowing experience interviewing, oh my God, shell-shocked, traumatized Hillary Clinton voters as they were coming out on election night to the news that Donald Trump was president. All about my experience talking to those. I try not to knock them too bad because obviously they were upset. But boy, were they out of touch with why she lost. So that chapter is now available. And if you're not aware, folks, I've been releasing this chapter by chapter at patreon.com/Jordan Chariton. So my book Patreon, completely different than my reporting Patreon. That would be for the book, patreon.com/Jordan Chariton. For reporting, patreon.com/Jordan Chariton Reports. You could get chapters 1 through 8 right now if you choose for as low as $1 per chapter, $3 per chapter, $5 per chapter, and so on and so on. Your contributions, folks, to my book Patreon or my reporting Patreon is going to help me build this company. We are using these funds to build up the company. First order of business, gotta hire a camera person because as, semi-talented as I am, I can't do it all. I do need a camera person on the road with me. Gotta hire a camera person. Then we gotta get, one-time purchase of equipment, specific cameras, HD qualities, certain lighting, a lot of things you need on the road. And then we need, a decent enough travel budget. And then we're getting going. We're gonna launch, probably start with just me. And as funding comes in, we're gonna hire other reporters too. So that's the plan. So help me do it. For those of you, right now we are at, let's take a look for a second. We're at 353 patrons. We've had this Patreon up probably over 2 months now. So we're at 353 patrons. We're at almost $2,000 per month. So I can't thank all of you enough who are subscribing. Definitely, if you can't subscribe, let people know about it. This is to fund real independent journalism that actually gets out there in the field. As much as I love doing videos from where I live, I do want to get out in the field. That's my passion. And we have other reporters in mind to help us and build, because it's not going to just be, me. It's going to be other reporters as well. So definitely, if you're not subscribed, consider it. You could do $1 a month. You could do $2 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month, $20 a month, $27 a month. Whatever you could do. Obviously, we're all stretched thin already financially. So thank you to those who are subscribing and contributing. Your funds are going to help build this media revolution. Ooh, I just gave you a sneak peek. I'm going to play a Seinfeld clip today. So, did anything happen? Did anything happen over the weekend? There was a little dinner where all these establishment, elitist, out of touch, the bastions of the journalism establishment, they got together to have a little dinner for themselves. It's called the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And to tell you the truth, when I was at the Young Turks, the Young Turks had a little party on White House Correspondents' Dinner weekend. We didn't actually go into the dinner, but we had a little party where we'd invite, when I was there, we'd invite, people from Huffington Post and, all these corporate outlets. And I didn't particularly like being there because it's not my favorite thing to brush elbows with the corporate media that I think are part of the problem. So fortunately, I wasn't there this week. But I just watched the full comedian act that has been getting everybody up in arms. And I have a lot to say. But what I want to start with for the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and by the way, press the share button. Unfortunately, YouTube is not telling everybody who's subscribed and everybody that clicks the notification bell, they're not notifying all subscribers when I'm live. Same problem happening to Jimmy Dore, Lee Camp, Kyle Kalinske, Jamarl Thomas, to name a few. So press the share button. Let's get it out there. But I want to start with something that really, really turns my skin. So let me play the part that really bothers me. Doesn't bother me, but the reaction to it bothers me. Here we go.
Flint still doesn't have clean water.
Oh boy, did you hear that? Did you hear that, folks? Let me play it for you one more time.
But he has helped you. He's have clean water.
Hold on.
I gotta get out of here. Good night.
I don't know like what the best part of that is. I don't know what the best part of that is. If it's the fact that she said it, which I really appreciate. I happen to think she was really funny, but the establishment media didn't like her. I'll get to her and her act in a little bit. But did you see the faces of the people, the journalists in the crowd when she said Flint doesn't have clean water? It was a mix of can you pass the salt, or just faces of what do you mean Flint doesn't have clean water? The EPA and Michigan tell me they have clean water. What do you mean, Michelle, they don't have clean water? I mean, it was, I got to play it one more time. I'm sorry. Got to play it one more time. Why did I do that? Why did I do that? I just X'd her out by accident. Hold on. I'll get her. We do these things live here on youtube.com/Jordan Sheridan Reports. Hold on. I'm getting Michelle Wolf. Complete remarks. Here we go. So she says at the end this.
I gotta get out of here. Good night. Flint still doesn't have clean water.
Look at those reactions. Totally disinterested in an American citizen, an American city that after 4 years, still doesn't have clean water. A bunch of wealthy, out of touch, cocktail crowd, frankly, jerk-offs. A comedian is actually informing the journalists of the state of the water in Flint. And the journalists are like, pass the salt? Alina Fex said, out of touch Marie Antoinette's. I agree. So Craig says they should be ashamed. Maybe they were, and that's why they weren't clapping. Yeah. Alex says, let them drink lead. I agree. So not only do I have by the way, I think it's great that Michelle Wolf brought that up. And by the way, Michelle Wolf, a comedian, and I plan on watching her Netflix special, she covered Flint more than both CNN and MSNBC covered. Do you know on April 25th, so 5 days ago, it was the 4-year anniversary of the disastrous water switch? Neither of those channels covered it. After the governor of Michigan literally just shut down the water pods. 4 years later, they still don't have clean water. As I've been reporting, the science being used is frankly fraudulent. So what really got to me the most about this, I love that she said it. I think it was terrible, the reaction from the crowd. They clearly didn't care. But we then saw all of these, the resistance leaders, these establishment Democrats all of a sudden jumping on the Flint bandwagon. And by the way, as a journalist who has continued to cover Flint, when it's not in the news and when it's not sexy, I invite anybody, any pundit, any journalist who wants to start paying attention to it. So it's not a knock on people who kind of ignored it and have, forgotten it. I think it's disgraceful that they have ignored it, but it's not like I'm going to say, no, don't cover it now. Don't care now. I invite all people. But the problem is the people that suddenly started sending out tweets and, the poor people of Flint and shame on the media for forgetting about Flint are literally the same exact people who have been fomenting at the mouth every day of their lives about Donald Trump and Russia and Stormy Daniels and nonsense. Let's see, all of a sudden, these concerned establishment Democrats about Flint. And kudos to my business partner, Jen, who sent me a lot of these. She's a fantastic researcher. So, you want to see the Johnny-come-latelys now on the Flint bandwagon? Okay. Well, we got Brian Fallon, who was Hillary Clinton's press spokesperson. He said the cruelest thing said by Michelle Wolf was the reminder that Flint still does not have clean water. I couldn't agree with you more, Mr. Fallon. As I tweeted at you, if only there was a Democratic nominee in 2016 that instead of using Flint as a photo op and one campaign stop, if only there was a candidate who made it a campaign issue, who fought for the citizens of Flint, who put in her policy more and more relief money to Flint, who put more and more relief money not just for the pipes, but for the endemic poverty in Flint, who actually put as one of her campaign issues, we're going to look into the EPA's lead and copper rule, which is the bogus, fraudulent rule that water utilities are using all over the United States to claim water is quote unquote safe when it's not. As I've been telling you for weeks, I'm working on a big investigative piece on that. So, oh man, Brian, do you know a candidate who got the Democratic nominee that went to Flint once and then never mentioned it again? Do any of you know who that is? Any of you know who it is? In the chat, who this Brian Fallon, who, by the way, now that he's not Hillary Clinton's campaign spokesperson, most of the tweets I see from Mr. Fallon are about Trump and Russia. All of a sudden, though, Brian Fallon, oh, it's so cruel that Flint doesn't have clean water and nobody cares. And by the way, to be clear, I'm not criticizing people for coming to the party late. I'm criticizing these people because they're the ones that are making sure the only thing that get attention, the only thing that gets coverage is Trump and Russia, because they're political operatives. They don't care about the people in Flint. If they did care about the people in Flint, Brian Fallon would have pushed his candidate. I mean, obviously it's not his fault, but Hillary Clinton would have actually made it more than just a one-stop campaign issue. Because as I tweeted today, you want to know something? If Hillary Clinton would have fought for the residents of Flint, if she would have been against the Dakota Access Pipeline, if she would have been against all these fossil fuel projects, she would have fought for the downtrodden, she'd be president today. We might not like it, but she would have won the presidency. I do believe her not coming around against the Dakota Access Pipeline made a big difference. I think it was one of the reasons Bernie Sanders voters refused to, by and large, to come out against her. But you got, Brian Fallon, her campaign spokesperson, all of a sudden he cares. So I want to make sure you're clear. I'm not upset that more people are suddenly saying these nice things. I'm upset because it's hollow. They're not going to follow through. Do you think Brian Fallon's going to be tweeting about Flint in 2 days? Doubt it. Let's keep going. Who else? Here we have Leah McElrath. Leah McElrath. Finally, we could focus more outrage about this truth with which Michelle Wolf closed her set. Flint still doesn't have clean water. Thanks. Well, guess who Leah? I don't know if she still works there or she used to work for there. She worked for Share Blue, which is a major David Brock, Neera Tanden, Democratic establishment platform. So if Leah, who worked for Share Blue, if she cares so much about Flint, if the Democratic establishment cares so much about Flint, why are they just tweeting about it now? I'm not saying this because I'm super duper awesome and I've been covering Flint forever. I'm just doing what real journalists should do. It's not a victory party for me. I am calling out the hypocrites who, when it's trendy, the comedian, the controversial comedian, she did a thing where a shout out at the end, Flint's not clean, so let me throw it out there. Yeah, and I've seen some progressives who haven't been covering Flint much either. They are progressive media people I'm talking about, who retweeted these tweets or sent them out themselves. Well, I don't see them covering Flint at all. And there's a lot to cover. If you look on this channel right now, you could click on playlists. There's playlists for different videos. I itemize them into different playlists. I have a whole Flint water playlist, and this channel's only been operating for 2 months. I probably already have over 15 videos just on Flint. But all of a sudden, these people suddenly care about Flint. So, you know what? For people with actual integrity who might come forward and say, you know what, I screwed up, I've let this go, and now I'm going to call more attention to it. Bravo. We're not all perfect. I invite you. But for these establishment Democrat hacks, and I'm going to get to more of them, suddenly we care about Flint. Well, the residents don't need your faux concern. The residents need action. They need people busing into Flint to protest with them. What do you think would have happened? You know, there's 50 residents in Flint who went to protest a few weeks ago when the criminal governor, Rick Snyder, closed down all the water pods saying the water is safe. Can you imagine if some of these same people would have showed up and it could have been 500 or 1,000 or thousands of people protesting? Maybe then it becomes a much bigger news story. And maybe then people start asking publicly, wait a minute, how is this governor closing down all the water pods for poisoned poor people when not all of the pipes have been replaced in Flint? How are we allowing that to happen? And if you'd like to see real reporting, if you'd like to see real reporters get back in the field to cover Flint, there's the address where you can make it happen. For those of you that have subscribed, thank you so much. For those of you who haven't, I hope you'll consider it. You could do $1 a month, $3 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month. Jen will put the link in the chat. So let me show you a couple more here. Here's this one, like, I couldn't believe this one. So this guy, Wesley Lowery, he's a national reporter for the Washington Post, and he says, the most upsetting thing Michelle Wolf said last night was the reminder that Flint, Michigan still doesn't have clean water. Imagine if the DC press corps and political chattering class had spent today performatively upset about that. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness. Imagine Wes, and I'm not calling Wes out, I mean, I don't know him, but imagine, Wes, if there was this major world-recognized newspaper, I think it's called the Washington Post. Imagine if you worked for them and you wrote about the Flint water crisis, and you wrote about the governor closing down the water pods, and you wrote about the EPA and state environmental agencies cooking up science to declare the water safe. Oh, if only me, Wes Clark, worked for a major, world-renowned, huge resources owned by Amazon newspaper that could cover the poor people of Flint that were poisoned. Imagine that, Wes. Imagine that. And again, I don't know Wes Lowery. I'm sure he's a nice guy. I'm not attacking him as a person, but this tweet was so tone deaf, so clueless. You work for the Washington Post. You work for the Washington Post. Write about it. Tell your editor there's major corruption going on there. Tell the editor. Tell the executive editor. You know what? The world could take one or two less stories about Robert Mueller or Russia or Trump. Because the Washington Post, they say, I think their slogan is democracy dies in the dark. Democracy dies in the dark. Well, people are getting sick and dying in the open, in the light, in Flint, Michigan. People are getting sick and dying in the light in Flint, Michigan. I got one more for you. One more. And this one, oh boy. His name's Jon Favreau. He is one of the hosts of this popular podcast. What's it called? Crooked Media. Oh, Pod Save America. I listened to it once and I couldn't listen anymore. It's just Obama-loving Democratic establishment bullshit. But it's very popular, so credit to them. He wrote, comedian ends comedy dinner by saying that Flint doesn't have clean water, an attempt to point out Washington's continued neglect of people who need help. Washington responds with a righteous debate about the tone and civility of the comedian's jokes. Perfect. So just think about this, and Jen would know better than me. I think Pod Save America, his podcast that he co-hosts, is like in the top 5 of podcasts in the country. It's one of the most popular podcasts in this country. I would put the very little money that I have, down that Mr. Favreau and his co-hosts at Pod Save America have not spoken or covered the Flint water crisis ever on their podcast. Maybe they're going to this week in relation to the comedian mentioning it. So again, I'm not attacking John Favreau, who was a speechwriter for President Obama. I don't know him. I don't care about him as a person. But the tone deafness and the jumping on the bandwagon of the trendiness of, oh, poor Flint, the comedian mentioned it, so let's tweet about it and let's pretend we care for 2 minutes before we go back to talking about Trump and Russia and, whatever other nonsense. If you're going to actually stay on the story, I will come back. I will do video after video crediting you. I don't care if you're an establishment Democrat, a progressive, a conservative, it doesn't matter as long as you cover it. And you cover it the right way, not just repeating what the government tells you. But enough of these people feigning interest and concern for the people of Flint. Well, you weren't feigning interest for the people of Flint when I was there last year when 6 residents got arrested and thrown in jail for the crime of expressing frustration at still 3 years into it, not having clean water. Where was your indignation then? I didn't see any stories. I didn't hear Pod Save America talking about it. I didn't hear Wesley Lowery of the Washington Post talking about it. Being a journalist means you cover things when all the cameras have left. Being a journalist means you cover things when it's not trendy, or it's not trending on Twitter, or it's not sexy. That's what real journalism is. When you cover things because lives are on the line, whether it makes you money or not. So I reject these Johnny-come-latelys, I don't know what the female version of that would be, who pretend to care. You know what? Let's look at their Twitter in a few days, see if they're still tweeting about Flint, like I do every day. And once again, I want to be clear. Don't take this the wrong way. This is not about me. This is not a kudos to me at all. I'm dying because I haven't been back to Flint since, I think, September or October. I just don't have the money. That's where you come in. Patreon.com/JordanCharityReports. I really bleed this stuff. Jen could tell you in the chat, I've been working on a major story. I must have rewritten it at least 40 to 50 times at this point. Still trying to get more people on the record to get this thing published because I believe it exposes cooked up science being used to declare the water safe, not just in Flint, but around the country. So, Brian Stelter, his little media criticism show, he's never going to criticize these establishment buddies because these are the people that they're going to have drinks with after the White House Correspondents' Dinner. You think they're talking about Flint at the after parties? You think they're talking right now on MSNBC? You know what the headline is? John Kelly, the chief of staff, called Trump a moron. Oh my God. What'd you say? Endo says Jordan needs a white tape in the bridge of his glasses. What you trying to say, Endo? What's wrong with my glasses? Stop drinking the haterade, yo. So that's what I have to say about Flint. Don't come tell me you care about Flint when it's in vogue to care about Flint. You either care about American citizens being poisoned and a cover-up after that and then being left abandoned to die. You either care about that all the time or you don't. It's really that simple. Moving on, and as a reminder for those of you who came in late, yesterday I released chapter 8 of my book. My book is called Corporate Con Job, and here we go. The election night and the demise of neoliberalism. All about that harrowing, grisly night, interviewing just traumatized Hillary Clinton voters outside her election night arena where she was supposed to break the glass ceiling, but unfortunately just broke so many hearts. I think it shows you a lot of behind the scenes. My business partner Jen tells me that this chapter I got my quote-unquote fire back. This is a separate Patreon. This is not my reporting Patreon. This is my book Patreon. That is patreon.com/Jordan Chariton. The book is /Jordan Chariton. Reporting Patreon is /Jordan Chariton Reports. Both of them, we're using the funds to launch this status coup. Help me do it, baby. Patreon.com/Jordan Chariton or patreon.com/Jordan Chariton Reports. At a certain point, I'll start selling plasma to get these numbers up, baby. I'll do whatever I have to do. So, moving on. Jordan gone cuckoo? Maybe. Moving on to the rest of the White House Correspondents' Dinner. I want to show you the two parts that I found really, really amazing about Michelle Wolf. Here we go. If I can find it, that is. Here we go.
Russia, when the Hillary campaign was in contact with Russia. It is kind of crazy that the Trump campaign was in contact with Russia when the Hillary campaign wasn't even in contact with Michigan. It's a direct flight. It's so close.
Isn't it amazing? Isn't it amazing that a comedian, and bravo to her, I thought she did a terrific job. Yeah, there were some jokes that were a little crass. One might have insulted Press Secretary Sarah Sanders' facial expression. I listened to it twice. I don't know for certain if that was her intent to insult her facial appearance. I don't think it was her intent, but maybe people in the room took it that way. I don't know. Other than that, I thought she was fabulous. I thought the awkward moments were because journalists don't like to be insulted because they're not actual journalists. They're public relations professionals. And she basically told the truth, which insulted these journalists. But what she just said there was amazing. Amazing that it's a comedian that is pointing out the obvious. It wasn't Russia. Oh, you want to know what that Seinfeld clip is? You wait, that's the next story. It wasn't Russia why Hillary Clinton lost. She barely went to Michigan. The comedian left out. You missed your direct flight to Wisconsin. Hillary Clinton didn't even campaign in Wisconsin. Democrats hadn't lost Wisconsin since 1984, so Hillary Clinton said, let's take it for granted. Do you know Hillary Clinton? You don't really hear this in corporate media. She pulled out most of her volunteers out of Michigan like weeks before the election. Do you know Hillary Clinton's campaign didn't actually get on the radio in front of African American radio specifically till like a week before the election in Michigan? But no, Trump has these sinister contacts with Russia. So that's why Hillary Clinton lost. Not because, she was a bad campaigner. She was a bad campaigner. She was an awful campaigner. I mean, it's truly, truly unbelievable that a comedian, it's truly, truly unbelievable that a comedian of all people is pointing out the obvious, that Hillary Clinton lost because she was a terrible, terrible candidate, because her campaign made dumb decisions. Do you know she went to Arizona the last week of the election trying to win Arizona, which is a Republican state, instead of going to Michigan and Wisconsin? Do you know that? But this was my favorite part. This right here was my favorite part of Michelle Wolf. Let's show you.
There's a ton of news right now. A lot is going on, and we have all these 24-hour news networks. And we could be covering everything. But instead, we're covering 3 topics. Every hour, it's Trump, Russia, Hillary, and a panel of 4 people that remind you why you don't go home for Thanksgiving. Milk comes from nuts now, all because of the gays. You guys are obsessed with Trump. Did you used to date him? Because you pretend like you hate him, but I think you love him. I think what no one in this room wants to admit is that Trump has helped all of you. He couldn't sell steaks or vodka or water or college or ties or Eric. But he has helped you. He's helped you sell your papers and your books and your TV. You helped create this monster, and now you're profiting off of him.
Preach.
And if you're going to profit off of Trump, you should at least give him some money because he doesn't have any. Trump is so broke, he
So, oh my God, that was so amazing. I mean, literally, a comedian, of all people, is basically telling the truth. You don't hear that kind of talk among CNN guests. You don't hear that kind of talk among MSNBC guests. You certainly don't hear that kind of talk in the New York Times. But I want to show you that one more time because there was, when it goes to the crowd, when it goes to the audience, there was somebody, the rest of the media was just sitting in silence. Oh my God, how dare she tell the truth? How we're really just corrupt, greedy, fake journalists. But there was one individual kind of cheering. Let me know if you notice who was the individual kind of cheering here.
Like 3 topics. Every hour it's Trump, Russia, Hillary, and a panel of 4 people that remind you why you don't go home for Thanksgiving. Milk comes from nuts now, all because of the gays. You guys are obsessed with Trump. Did you used to date him? Because you pretend like you hate him, but I think you love him. I think what no one in this room wants to admit is that Trump has helped all of you. He couldn't sell steaks or vodka or water or college or ties or Eric. But he has helped you. He's helped you sell your papers and your books and your TV. You helped create this monster, and now you're profiting off of him. And if you're gonna
Oh, I missed it. Wait, 1 second.
profiting off of him.
Oh, who's that bald guy right there? Everybody else? Oh, how dare you insult us. There's Jeff Weaver, Bernie Sanders' campaign manager. He is clapping it up and loving every second of it. Because that's exactly what happened. That is exactly what happened. Instead of covering Bernie Sanders, instead of covering his exploding movement, I remember I was at Washington Square Park covering his rally that had inside the park 28,000 people. Around the park, the estimates were 40,000 in total when you add in everybody who was around the park. CNN had empty podiums of Donald Trump. So Jeff Weaver knows more than anyone that the media is what created this monster. The media who is aghast. This isn't normal. Donald Trump's not normal. He's going against social and presidential norms. Yeah, they created him. And now they're profiting off of him. That's why they don't cover Flint. That's why they don't cover environmental genocide. That's why they don't cover police brutality at length. That's why they don't cover local and state level corruption. There's a lot of corrupt officials, probably in your neck of the woods. But they don't think that's profitable. I do think that's profitable. I think real journalism is profitable because you know what? I remember when I was at the Young Turks, they did a fundraiser. I think they raised a few dollars off of real reporting. Do you remember that? I think they raised $2 million for more real reporting in the field. So apparently people do want real reporting. Apparently people are willing to pay for it. As a reminder, your contributions are going to help me get back in the field. But what was really the best part of what she said is you guys are doing this for straight profit. That's why you only talk about 3 subjects. She started it off by saying, you guys are 24/7 news outlets. You could cover a million things. You have the resources to do it. Yet you pretty much choose to cover Trump, Russia. I don't see that much on Hillary Clinton in the corporate media. It's Trump and Russia. Trump's tweets. Trump's speeches. Trump's schedule. It's truly astounding. And by the way, this is why I left corporate media. When I was at MSNBC, that was the last place I worked at, cable news. They literally, do you remember Rush Limbaugh called a Georgetown University student, what was her name? Sandra Fluke. Rush Limbaugh called her, I believe, a slut. They literally on MSNBC, when I was there, covered this for 2 straight weeks. That's all they covered. 2 weeks. And that was my point of no return. Of course, I think it's terrible that a radio host would call a young woman a slut. That's not the point. It is terrible. But that doesn't need to be covered for, days and days and days. And frankly, 2 weeks. It's insane. Totally insane. But this is the corporate media we have. It's not media. It's infotainment. It's infotainment. Heavy, light on the info, heavy on the tainment. So what I think is the takeaway to me, so you have Andrea Mitchell. Look at this. Andrea Mitchell tweeted this. Apology is owed to the press secretary and others grossly insulted. Nigh Michelle Wolf at White House Correspondents Association dinner, which started with an uplifting, heartfelt speech by Margaret Tlaib. Comedian was worse since Imus insulted the Clintons. So there's two aspects to this that I want to point out. First and foremost, how tipsy was Andrea Mitchell when she wrote this tweet. Apparently she forgot how to spell B-Y. That's how you say bye. Apparently Clinton's has a comma now. I'm not knocking her. I misspell tweets quite often. We all, are busy and sometimes misspell things. But come on, Andrea. You got 1,500 retweets here. You can't spell. Let's work on that, shall we? But other than that, Michelle Wolf has to apologize to the press secretary. Andrea, I don't know if you got this memo, but you're a quote-unquote journalist. You're not supposed to be chummy with the press secretary. You're not, frankly, even supposed to have a relationship with the press secretary other than hi, bye, and reaching out when you have news that the press secretary doesn't want revealed. You're not supposed to be chummy or apologize to the press secretary. If anything, Sarah Sanders should be apologizing to the media and the people because she lies on a daily basis. She lies as often as she breathes. You should also apologize, frankly, because your husband ruined the economy as Federal Reserve Chair, Alan Greenspan. That snail. Human says Greenspan's wife does as she pleases. This is true. And by the way, Andrea Mitchell is the symbol, the personification of the cocktail crowd journalist. If you read a book called This Town, oh boy, This Town, it drops the veil on this town, which is DC. Andrea Mitchell, she don't miss the cocktail parties where she brushes elbows with the same exact politicians she's supposed to be grilling and holding accountable and being aggressive to, not chummy with. I'm not saying you have to have a uncomfortably awful relationship with government. You don't have to pass them and not say hello. But you're not supposed to have a chummy relationship. I heard the head of the White House Correspondents Association apologizing for this comedian and saying, we work hard to have a good working relationship with the White House. Yeah, you work really hard, meaning you bend over backwards to get access, because that's what they are. They're not journalists, they're access merchants. In order to get access, they throw little puff pieces, and they don't hold them accountable. Did you actually see the corporate media asking questions to Sarah Sanders about EPA Chief Scott Pruitt over his devastating policies? Or did you hear them grilling her on whether he had some corrupt hotel deals or got hotel deals from a lobbyist? Both are bad. I kind of think the environmental part is way worse because it's kind of like the destruction of the planet. But they don't grill Sarah Sanders. They didn't grill Obama's press secretary on anything of substance. They threw him softballs. Because that's what they are. They're not journalists. They are corporate media ladder climbers. And they will kiss and do other things to get access. And I don't do that. And that's why I'm here with an arts and crafts sign behind me. But I'm proud of it. And that's how I'm going to stay. You cannot buy me. You will not be able to buy the reporters we end up hiring. All you could do is fund me so I answer to you. You wouldn't catch me dead at a White House Correspondents' dinner. You would not catch me dead. trying to beg these people for an interview with Donald Trump or anyone in their administration, because I don't need it. I don't care. What is the point of begging and kissing ass for these, to interview, administration people so that they could feed you talking points that you just regurgitate? Give me a break. Get the hell out of here. Should I move on to one? Okay, I got 2 stories left today, and then I got to go to something for my dad. Do I move on to Joy Reid, or do I move on to Wolf Blitzer? Tell me in the chat. Do I move on to Joy Reid, or do I move on to Wolf Blitzer? Because both are a doozy. Both are doozies, folks. By popular demand, do you want Joy Reid or Wolf? Nicholas says Wolf. Anna says Joy. Pete says Wolf. Well, okay, we got 2. Okay, sorry. All right, we're getting more joys here. Ooh, but so many wolves. What do I do? What do I do? Jen, what do I do? Wolf or Joy? All right, by popular demand, I got to go to Joy Reid. Oh, when you hear what Wolf Blitzer said, you might literally vomit. So I hope you're on not empty stomachs. Or is it full stomachs? I don't know. And as a reminder, folks, I hate to keep having to do it, but what did Mama say? If you don't advocate for you, Jordan, nobody will. If you don't advocate for you, nobody will. If you like this kind of journalism, if you like what I'm saying, if you like the mission we are trying to build, go to patreon.com/Jordan Sheridan Reports. If we can get that to 400 patrons by the end of this week, I will come on and I will sing Third Eye Blind to you proudly and sober. So let's get to 400 patrons. If you've already subscribed, you know what you could do for me? Tweet it, Facebook it, Instagram it, send it out via smoke signal. Tell your friends, tell your family. Jordan Sheridan, youtube.com/Jordan Sheridan Reports, patreon.com/Jordan Sheridan Reports. You could do $1, you could do $3, $5. Real journalism. And you know what? I have conservatives that watch me as well, I've learned. They might not agree with me, but they like the coverage that they're not getting elsewhere. Because believe it or not, there are some conservatives who actually care about the planet. They're just not really shown in the polls, in the focus groups. So, moving on. So, as I covered last week, Joy Reid, no friend of mine for sure. She once called me a Power Ranger because when she said, you don't have any evidence that the primary was rigged against Bernie Sanders, I did what journalists do. I provided her evidence. I think I did 13 tweets of examples of how the primary was rigged. And in response, she literally, instead of responding to it, said, "Oh, you little Power Ranger." So I was planning on, if NBC fired her, to go to the local store and find a Power Ranger costume. But they didn't fire her. So on Saturday, she went on national television. And what did she say? Oh boy, I X'd it out by X. Hold on. Joy Reid, apology. Here we go. Here we go. You ready, folks? You ready for this?
Good morning and welcome to AM Joy. A community that I support and that I deeply care about is hurting because of some despicable and truly offensive posts being attributed to me.
So right off the bat, she says, a community I very much care about, much care about is hurting because of comments attributed to me. So she's saying comments that are attributed to me, like she's on the outside looking in. She didn't make the comments, they're just attributed to her. So you're following that? You're following that, right? Okay, here, let's continue.
And many of you have seen these blog posts circulating online and in social media. Many of them are homophobic, discriminatory, and outright weird and hateful. When a friend found them in December and sent them to me, I was stunned. Frankly, I couldn't imagine where they'd come from or whose voice that was. In the months since, I've spent a lot of time trying to make sense of these posts. I hired cybersecurity experts to see if somebody had manipulated my words or my former blog. And the reality is they have not been able to prove it. But here's what I know. I genuinely do not believe I wrote those hateful things because they are completely alien to me. But I can definitely understand, based on things I have tweeted and have written in the past, why some people don't believe me. I've not been exempt from being dumb or cruel or hurtful to the very people I want to advocate for. I own.
So let me translate that for you, and I'm very proud that I thought of this. Let me translate what she's actually saying.
Jerry, just remember, it's not a lie if you believe it.
Well, there you go.
Jerry, just remember, it's not a lie if you believe it.
Well, apparently the new standard in journalism these days is I truly, I mean truly, don't believe I wrote those terrible things. I really don't believe I wrote those terrible things. So, and I think like 72 hours or maybe a week, it went from I was hacked. This is what she said. It went from I was hacked to her security expert saying the FBI is opening an investigation into her blog because it was hacked, to her security, the same cybersecurity expert, telling the Daily Beast, unfortunately, in the end, even though we said it was hacked and, we said an FBI investigation was open, unfortunately, we haven't been able to find evidence that we were hacked, to I sincerely don't believe I wrote these things. And let me make something very, very, very clear. And some of you might not like this, but I'm going to be honest. I don't like Joy Reid. I think she's a propagandist. I think she knowingly says things that are lies. I think she smears actual progressives like Bernie Sanders because she is a simple-minded establishment neoliberal who is quite happy and fine with corruption. She's totally fine with that. She attacks progressives. She says terrible things about progressives. She's insinuated and outright said Bernie Sanders is a racist. His voters are racist and sexist with no evidence to back it up. So that's what I think of Joy Reid. Do I wish anything ill will towards her? Absolutely not. I'm not that kind of person. But the bottom line is, this has nothing to do with whether Joy Reid did or did not make homophobic statements in a blog years ago. Nothing to do with that. Because for me, and I tweeted this over the weekend, I don't, if Joy Reid wrote nasty things about homosexuals over a decade ago, I would think it's a bad thing. I've never written openly negative things about homosexuals because I've never thought that way. I had gay friends in college and I've never had a problem with it. But whether it's Joy Reid, who I don't like, or anybody else, we all are human beings. So if she would have come out and said, because in December when she was first called out for these homophobic comments that she wrote on her blogs, she was mocking Charlie Crist, the former governor of Florida, kind of suggesting he was gay. She mocked other things about gay people. If she would have just come out like she did in December she acknowledged it. But these more recent revelations that came out, if she would have just come out and said, listen, I own it. I said these terrible things. I'm horrified at what I wrote. I can't even recognize the kind of person that would write that. That's not who I am anymore, but I did write those things. And I can't say sorry enough. to the LGBT community. She also wrote things that were kind of Islamophobic. It came out. She said terrible things like kind of fat shaming Rosie O'Donnell. I mean, Joy Reid said a lot of bad stuff. And by the way, I've probably written stuff 10 years ago that I'm not proud of. We probably all have. So, let's not be hypocrites here. We can't hold anyone to a perfect standard. That's not me defending Joy Reid. That's the truth. We've all written things we're not proud of. But the problem here isn't somebody evolving or not evolving. Let's say she wrote them and she denounced them and she feels terrible about them, and now she's not that way and she apologized. It would have been a story probably for 2 days. And then everybody would move on. Because all you could do in life is, if you did something wrong, you either acknowledge it and hope people will forgive you, or you lie about it. The problem is not that she made these terrible comments about homosexuals, some comments about Muslims. It's that she lied about it. She is currently lying about it. She is on national television lying. Here we go. This is a lie.
Discriminatory and outright weird and hateful. When a friend found them in December and sent them to me, I was stunned. Frankly, I couldn't imagine where they'd come from or whose voice that was. In the months since, I've spent a lot of time trying to make sense of these posts. I hired cybersecurity experts to see if somebody had manipulated my words or my former blog. And the reality is they have not been able to prove it. But here's what I know. I genuinely do not believe I wrote those hateful things because they are completely alien to me. But I can definitely understand, based on things I have tweeted and have written in the past, why some people don't believe me.
No, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. It's not because I don't like you as a person. I don't. It has nothing to do with that. I don't believe you. You're lying. I mean, I could say that objectively as a journalist, you are lying. The Wayback Machine, the Internet Archive has said, we looked into it, there is no evidence of anything that has been adjusted or changed on her blog. Any hacking, anything like that. Her own cybersecurity expert that she hired went on the record with the Daily Beast, who, credit to them, they did investigate it, saying we haven't been able to prove it. So she is lying. And she knows she's lying. And this is a national news organization. NBC News, who, by the way, kept Brian Williams after it showed that he was lying about, storming in and his brave reporting, in Iraq and other places, Katrina. He made up war stories. Well, you have a quote-unquote journalist, whether it's someone I like or dislike is irrelevant. She has been lying for over a week. And NBC and MSNBC is not only not penalizing her, is not only not suspending her, they let her go and host her show. I think she hosts Saturday and Sunday mornings on MSNBC, and continue to lie to her viewers and the wider American public. That's what this story is about. Whether I like her or not, her policies and her viewpoint, it's not about that. If she would have done what many people have had to do when they're called out for, bad things, and apologize. You take the heat and you hope people forget it and forgive it. But she continues to lie. It's usually not the actual crime, it's the cover up after the crime. It's crazy. It's crazy. And the fact that not only is NBC sticking by her, but you had this old waterfall of support for her after these comments, acting like, oh, bravo to Joy Reid for being so brave to come out and apologize for her awful comments. This from the #1 star on the network, Rachel Maddow. Brains, guts, heart, and soul. Beloved Joy Reid has always been a treasured and brilliant colleague. but I've never been prouder to work with her than I am now. That's from Rachel Maddow. Well, Rachel Maddow, who is the #1 host at MSNBC, is basically cheerleading for her colleague who is literally committing the #1 crime of journalism, falsifying information, lying to the viewers. And Rachel Maddow here doesn't care. Bravo for your guts and heart to go on national television and continue to lie to your viewers. Can you believe that? Forget Rachel Maddow and, my beef with her about her Flint coverage and her Russia hysteria. Forget that for a second. How can you claim to be a news network? How can you claim to be holding the President of the United States, who does lie every sentence? How could you claim to be a news network who's holding the president accountable if you're literally coming out cheerleading for your colleague who is actively lying about comments she made? It's absurd. Here's another one from Nicole Wallace, who's another MSNBC anchor. Every one of us will walk in Joy-Ann Reid's shoes someday, filled with remorse and regret over something we have said or done, but I predict that few will do this eloquently. Sending support and admiration to you and your amazing panel and Team Joy. Here's the problem, Nicole and Rachel Maddow. Yeah, every one of us will step in it one day. We'll probably say things that we're embarrassed about or we're ashamed of, particularly if you're in the public eye. And maybe we will have remorse. But what kind of remorse is it? Is it real remorse? If you don't feel remorseful enough to actually admit that you have said these latest comments? Regret over something we have said or done. She's saying she didn't say or do it, Nicole. And you, as a quote-unquote journalist, her, Rachel Maddow, there have been other anchors that have come out in support of Joy Reid, are literally coming out with pom-poms to stick with and stand by and celebrate someone who's literally lying to you and your audience. I mean, it's unbelievable. Truly unbelievable. I mean, and I give credit to the Huffington Post. I'll read you part of their story. After screenshots appearing to capture dozens of her past homophobic blog posts were tweeted the previous week, Reid told Mediaite last Monday she didn't author the posts. According to her initial statement, an unknown external party addressed and manipulated material to include offensive and hateful references. Reid said that the newly revealed content seems to be part of an effort to taint my character with false information. Quote, I can state unequivocally that it does not represent the original entries, she said. I hope that whoever corrupted the site recognizes the pain they've caused, not just to me, but to my family and communities that I care deeply about, LGBTQ, immigrants, people of color, and other marginalized people. But the hacking claims fell apart under scrutiny from several media outlets. Documents and statements provided to HuffPost by Reid's hired cybersecurity consultant, Jonathan Nichols, failed to prove Reid's blog had been hacked or that disrupted posts were in fact fraudulent. What's more, these homophobic statements Reid has been accused of writing aren't a major departure from what she's already owned up to, nor are they far from the liberal blogging norms of the mid-2000s, as The Nation pointed out. So you go from, I could unequivocally say these are not things that were written by me, to I sincerely believe I did not write these things, yet Rachel Maddow comes out in your support. Victoria Thomas, Susan Sarandon, hack Joy Reid. Don't you start those rumors. Don't you start those rumors. We don't want to hurt our buddy Susan Sarandon, who, by the way, I've been direct messaging, but she hasn't gotten back to me. So start the campaign. I've sent her a few things. I'm a big fan of Susan Sarandon. So, there you have it, folks. When NBC and MSNBC and all these establishment outlets, when they decry the terrible, terrible president we have, you know what they're doing right this minute with their support for Joy Reid? They're handing President Donald Trump the ammunition he needs to cry fake news. They're handing Trump and his Republican operative accomplices the ammunition they need to say these outlets are fake news and corrupt. You see, they have Brian Williams, who lied. He's on their air. You see, they have Joy Reid, who attacks homosexuals. Not that Donald Trump cares about homosexuals, but they're going to use this to prove their point on the campaign trail that they're up against a fake media. NBC, MSNBC, they are all handing Donald Trump his best campaign slogan and his best campaign enemy. Because let me tell you something, the fake news media, it works. I've seen it in the road. The people are hurting in Michigan and Ohio and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Illinois and many other states around this country. You probably live in a lot of them. And a lot of these people are susceptible to pointing the finger at Mexicans or Muslims or the press. I had a lot of uncomfortable moments when I was out on the campaign trail, where people tried to intimidate me, and several Trump supporters got a little too close for comfort, if you ask me, when I tried to interview them and did what journalists do, challenge them. They didn't like that, and some of them got in my face. So again, it's not about whether she made offensive comments or not. If she did, you own up to it, and we all can move on. Nobody's perfect, whether I like her or not. It's the lying. And from here on out, not that I considered them a real news outlet in the first place, but from here on out, I will remind people of this whenever I talk about NBC News, MSNBC. Because this is not journalism. If they were being journalists, they would have brought her into a room. They would have told her, you either tell the truth now or you're fired. And if she told the truth, they would have made her go on air and admit she was not being honest and apologize, and then they either suspend her or they fire her. Probably fire her. Because if you're a news outlet, you don't accept your journalist lying to viewers, whether it's about comments they wrote or about anything else. Moving on to one last, I literally couldn't believe when I saw this clip from Wolf Blitzer, who I kind of rotate between Wolf Blitzer and Chuck Todd. Who's the worst? Some days I think it's Wolf Blitzer. Some days I think it's Chuck Todd. Watch this clip. Wolf Blitzer talking to Senator Rand Paul about whether we should be helping Saudi Arabia in their genocide of Yemen.
We are refueling the Saudi bombers. So we are essentially part of the bombing campaign. We're helping them choose targets, and we are refueling the Saudi bombers that are dropping the bombs. It is said that thousands of civilians have died in Yemen because of this. Yes, we need to have a debate over this.
So for you, this is a moral issue because, you know, there's a lot of jobs at stake. Certainly, if a lot of these defense contractors stop selling warplanes, other sophisticated equipment to Saudi Arabia, there's going to be a significant loss of jobs and revenue here in the United States. That's secondary from your standpoint.
We are refueling.
I'm going to play that one more time because it's so shocking that an actual American journalist even asked that. Here we go.
The Saudi bombers. So we are essentially part of the bombing campaign. We're helping them choose targets, and we are refueling the Saudi bombers that are dropping the bombs. It is said that thousands of civilians have died in Yemen because of this. Yes, we need to have a debate over this.
So for you, this is a moral issue because, you know, there's a lot of jobs at stake. Certainly, if a lot of these defense contractors stop selling warplanes, other sophisticated equipment to Saudi Arabia, there's going to be a significant loss of jobs and revenue here in the United States. That's secondary from your standpoint.
I'm speechless. I am literally speechless. A United States journalist literally just asked, based on morality, a U.S. senator if all the jobs that might be lost are a sticking point in us helping Saudi Arabia commit genocide on Yemen. So that would be like, as a Jewish person, if CNN, MSNBC was around back in, I don't know, 1942, Wolf Blitzer saying, well, what about all the jobs that are going to be lost, from General Motors and these car companies that have German subsidiaries? We make a lot of the Nazis' automobiles and other weapons for the Nazis. That literally is the same thing. And the thing that's so striking about it, what Wolf Blitzer asked, he sees literally, it's like he asked it and he sees literally nothing wrong with it. Literally nothing wrong with it. Because Wolf Blitzer and CNN and MSNBC, they see literally nothing wrong with what we're doing to commit genocide in Yemen. I am somebody who covers domestic issues mostly. I think there's great people who cover foreign stuff. Lee Camp, Max Blumenthal, Rania Khalek, Jimmy Dore. I don't cover it that much. I'm covering it a little more since I'm not in the field. But I got into politics during the Iraq War, during the beginning of that. That's when I got into politics. I happened to know someone in high school who was killed during the Iraq War. To me, war is a very, very serious thing. It's not something that you base going to war or supplying people with weapons for whether we keep people in jobs. You don't help other countries commit genocide to give Americans jobs. We help give American jobs by putting money into education and to infrastructure and to healthcare and to other areas that don't kill innocent civilians around the world. And if you think I'm being dramatic, think about what Wolf Blitzer just asked him. So you look at this from more of a moral point of view, the fact that we're helping Saudi Arabia commit genocide and drop U.S.-made bombs on a wedding in Yemen, killing over 20 people, including the bride. Those are U.S.-made weapons that were dropped on that wedding in Yemen last week. Barely heard it covered. By the way, I go into that in depth on my podcast, which you can find on patreon.com/Jordan Sheridan Reports. Become a patron to get all my podcasts and all my video diaries. I just can't. And I know today's live stream has been heavy on, taking down the corporate media, but there was just, I had to. I could not believe this. What Wolf Blitzer just did is basically admit what I've been saying, what Lee Camp has been saying, what Jimmy Dore's been saying, what Kyle Kalinski's been saying, what the Young Turks has been saying, what a lot of people have been saying. Corporate media is literally an arm of the war machine. That's why I call it the Trump media industrial complex, because it's basically the military industrial complex, evil stepsister. Nicholas says death equals profit. Yeah. And you know what's amazing to me? Wolf Blitzer actually is Jewish, and he did a documentary on the Holocaust for CNN years ago. I remember it because my father watched it. My father's very religious, Jewish. But he sees no irony, no inconsistency, no problem with bringing up U.S. jobs in relation to Saudi Arabia and arming them. By the way, Trump just approved, I think, $110 million was it million or billion? Sorry, I forget. Extra arms exports deal. So we could send more arms to Saudi Arabia. Because who the fuck cares if we kill innocent people around the world, right? Who cares? They're not Americans. Frankly, we don't even care if we kill Americans anymore. Look in Flint. Somewhere along the line, folks, I know when, started in about late 90s, early 2000s, our media was hijacked by corporations, and inserted were public relations professionals, political operatives, masquerading as journalists. And what they do on a daily basis is sit under lights. Right now I'm sitting under very poorly lit lights, and they sit under lights, they put makeup all over their face, and they literally regurgitate United States government, intelligence, CIA, FBI talking points. I don't agree with Rand Paul on everything, but I thank him for fighting against this illegal war in Yemen. Bernie Sanders has also called for the end of this. So has Tulsi Gabbard and many actual progressives. But Wolf Blitzer, I mean, that's a sickening clip. Sickening that he even brought up, well, what about the U.S. jobs that would be lost if we stop being an accomplice to mass genocide in Yemen? Thousands have died. The numbers of people starving or sick are in the millions. And a big part of it, honestly, is so Saudi Arabia could go in and take the oil. Because that's what every war is. It's about the oil. As I end today, I say one last time, I know a lot of you are already subscribed to my Patreon. If you aren't, I hope you'll consider it. You could go listen to my latest podcast, Beat the Press. You could go, I did a very, very entertaining diary today where I talk to you while I'm doing my back stretches. We're going to be doing monthly video calls every month. Our monthly video calls just for patrons. So we do monthly behind-the-scenes video calls for my patrons, and we lay it out in the line. We do Q&A. So definitely check it out. If you cannot subscribe, that's fine. I don't want to put anybody out. If you have financial concerns, share it. Share these videos. Make sure, don't just share it. Post separately, like your own post on your Facebook, on your Twitter, on your Instagram, on whatever. Post. YouTube.com/Jordan Chariton Reports. Patreon.com/Jordan Chariton Reports. We are trying to launch Status Coup. And I literally can't do it without you. I know when the celebrities say, oh, I can't do it without you. No, they could do it without you. I can't do it without you. Jen can't do it without you. We need you. I want to answer to you and nobody else. We'll probably have our next video call. I don't know, what's today, April 30th? I don't know. Maybe next weekend. Maybe we'll do 2 this month. So thank you to everyone who has been contributing. Patreon.com/Jordan Chariton Reports. Tell your friend, tell your mother, tell the mailman. Take care, guys.